Then watch me do it again. Tell 'em I can't take no loss. My team hold no L's, no. Aiming for the top, can't make it by myself. I ain't taking no loss. I ain't taking no loss. Look, I'ma always win. I ain't taking no loss. Look, I'ma always win. We already know that we the coldest. Watch me heat it.
What is going on, everybody? Pete Simonetti here for NYYU. Ladies and gentlemen, I've been planning to make this video for some time, but I'm happy that the Yankees won yesterday because I feel a little more relaxed. I don't have to come on here, rant, scream, and really it was never my point to do that because I don't think you have to at this point. There's been so much, negative that you talk about during the games and throughout of the podcast that we do here. But today I just want to have a message to Hal Steinbrenner. And I think many Yankee fans are going to very, very much agree with this message and where I'm coming from. Of course, you have many others who disagree with it. But it's very easy to point out the negatives, right? So I want to start with a positive when it comes to Hal. The one big positive is he always puts a significant amount of money into this club to have the Yankees win. And there is no denying that you can't do it. Now he's on record of saying, I don't think I have to go that high. And I agree with him. He probably doesn't, but he does. He goes out there and tries to say, hey, if we got to go above 300, let's do that. Now, you'll have your nitpickers and people that get upset about certain things, and rightfully so, to certain examples and certain players or certain situations where you'd want him to go over and just do it to put the best club on the field because we as Yankee fans do feel we deserve that. We pay a lot of money going to the stadium, and I'll get into all that other stuff, but if there was one positive right there about Hal Steinbrenner, you can't deny that he doesn't spend money because he does. Whether you want to be angry about the way he does it and the person is handling it, we'll also get to that too. But that is the one big positive that I always take away from Steinbrenner. Now, the big negative is the simple question. Does Hal Steinbrenner truly care? I'll be honest with you. I struggle sometimes with this. If somebody were to ask me today and say, what do you believe? I tell them, no, I don't think he truly cares. I don't think he truly cares if the Yankees win the World Series at the end of the year. When it comes to last season, I think Hal Steinbrenner was happy because the Yankees played all the home games they could at Yankee Stadium, and he made enough money. He made a lot of money in the postseason. I don't know if Hal Steinbrenner was kicking the TV when the Yankees had a horrible fifth inning and just collapsed. I don't know if he was angry or upset when the Dodgers basically came out and said, just play Little League Baseball against these guys and they'll beat themselves. We really don't have to. I do not know if Hal is upset. And a lot of times what this turns to is, does Hal Steinbrenner have to be his father? And no, he doesn't have to be his father. Does he need to come out and say, like I just said before, when that fifth inning happened or when we lost, I broke my TV? No. Nobody needs to understand that. Nobody needs to hear him say anything like that. But one of the qualities that George had was you always felt his presence. And this is a huge difference from his son, Hal Steinbrenner, where you'd never feel his presence. When the Yankees would go through the slide that they've currently gone through, you would know that your anger was also being felt by George. Because you knew George felt the same way. George wouldn't tolerate this type of play. And I remember back in the day, right, when George Steinbrenner addressed the Yankees, it was headlines. It was headlines everywhere because, oh my God, the boss was coming downstairs. You know what that meant. Yankees better start playing better because who knows what's going to happen. And to me, that is where the biggest difference lies between Hal Steinbrenner and his father, George Steinbrenner. The New York Yankees now since 2001, they won in 2000, as we know, defeated the New York Mets in the Subway Series. They went to the World Series in 01. They went to the World Series in 03. They won the World Series in 2009, and they just went to the World Series in 2024. But since 2001, they got one World Series title. Now, the man that Hal Steinbrenner, again, another problem I feel, is allowing to continue to run out rosters that are constantly flawed. There's things you see and go, That's a problem. That's a problem. That's a problem. Why are we not addressing this? Why do we never have a third baseman? Why do we never have a left fielder for multiple years? Why do we have guys always out of position? And we'll continue to talk about that a little more. But he has entrusted Brian Cashman to continue to spend his money. And let's be real here. You look at the Yankees roster and see how that money's spent. And it's kind of like, interesting. He's allowed Brian Cashman to continue to spend his money and do this year after year without really any threat of losing his job or even being on the hot seat. Another person that is now in the fold is Michael Fishman. Now, this one is super interesting because Michael Fishman is now known as the head of the Yankees analytics. He's kind of Brian Cashman's right-hand man. And from what you hear, and I've said this many times, I think a few others have said this too, analytics are running MLB dugouts. And this is not only Yankee related, this is across Major League Baseball. And you're kind of hearing a lot more people kind of come out about this and talk about this. But I've specifically been told, I've shared this with my audience countless times, that Aaron Boone gets handed a lineup 2 hours before the game. He is told who is meant to come in that game 2 hours before the game. And it's because this guy, Mike Fishman, is the head. And by all means, before anybody sits there and goes, it's the analytics. I like analytics. I enjoy it. I do feel analytics is useful. I do feel it is a part of the game and it tells a story. Just like a lot of analytic people that go, batting average doesn't matter. Well, it does tell part of a story. There's something to be told there. Analytics seems to also drive these odd lineups that you see from the New York Yankees, like things like Anthony Rizzo hitting leadoff. But before I go any further, here is the man. Take a listen to this. This is Mike Fishman. This is the guy leading this charge that Hal Steinbrenner, by the way, is allowing.
I mean, the first thing is trying to figure out what the player is now, and we have we've built up a computer system that has all our analytical information and all our data and our projections, so we can go into there and kind of look at some of our own proprietary metrics on what we think the player is, and then
listen to that. And then listen to this and tell me what the difference is.
Have you ever had a dream that you want.
What the fuck are you talking about?
There you go. Is there did anybody hear a difference? Because I'm sorry, I didn't. This guy right here that is doing all of this, and it's been admitted. We know who Mike Fishman is now. You talk to a lot of people around the Yankees, and they'll tell you flat out, it ain't Boone. It's those two guys. Lead that way. And it's hard sometimes. And it's funny because I'm not taking any pressure off of Aaron Boone. I feel Boone is his own man. He could talk up, speak up whenever he wants. I personally believe that Aaron Boone has bought into this idea and this mindset of how his team is ran. And you listen to that and you go back and go, Hal allows this. So how do you care? I have trouble with the caring aspect of Hal Steinbrenner because you hear these type of things. You see the lineups every day. It's very strange to me that a team that preaches so hard on communication and we like to communicate well with this and that seem to be so off and so wrong on so many things. Jazz Chisholm, for an example, this season alone, came into the year saying that he knew he was playing second base. He knew where he was going to bat in order. And it allowed him to really kind of, that's what he likes. I like to know where I'm playing. I like to know where I'm batting. And we knew he was training at second base, him and Volpe. They were talking about this dynamic duo. They're going to be up the middle and turning double plays with style and all that. The Yankees then come back and go, yeah, we need you at third base because we have DJ LeMahieu. So we need you to play third base. And let's be real here. All credit to Jazz Chisholm for just saying, hey, I'm a team guy. I'll do whatever they ask me to do. Hasn't looked great at third base. DJ LeMahieu's range looks like it's gone at second base. And the Yankees just keep running it out there. They keep running it out there because they know better than everybody, when every year the things that we point out here at NYYU, or as just a few people in the fan base, or the fan base in general, not, I would say there's a lot of people out there who are now catching on to this, but the majority of the fan base recognizes when they watch this with their own eyes and they go, there's obviously issues here, but they refuse to address it. Why? It is clear as day when you look at this Yankee lineup and the players on this team that batting-wise, when you make an order out, Jason Dominguez should be at the top of this order. The Yankees refuse to do it. This is a team last year that, or the year before, had Anthony Rizzo leading off every now and then. Even Paul Goldschmidt leading. Aaron Boone just said it the other day, I like Goldie leading off against lefties. I understand he hits lefties, but this is, again, coming from a guy who has a famous quote out there, I'm a baseball guy, bro. Name me a baseball guy. Go speak to a baseball guy that would simply look at you and go, hey, man, look, I think Paul Goldschmidt is a phenomenal prototypical leadoff hitter for this club. I don't think those words have ever been said by anybody, or hell, Anthony Rizzo. At that, prototypical leadoff hitter, Anthony Rizzo. The Yankees lineup, I think the majority of fans can pencil something down and say, hey, let's kind of stick with this for a while, whether we got one against lefties, one against righties, and it just makes more baseball sense. But the Yankees don't work on baseball sense because Hal Steinbrenner has entrusted these three gentlemen, or I could say one guy in Brian Cashman, to allow this philosophy. Brian Cashman, let me give you guys a couple of quotes. You just heard Mike Fishman. Brian Cashman is on record of saying we wouldn't fire somebody based off wins and losses as long as they're following the process. To this day, I got no clue what that means. Because if you're a baseball team, your goal is to win enough games to win a World Series. How does that make sense that your wins and losses don't count to losing a job as long as the process is being followed? So again, I ask, and I've asked this for a long time and nobody's ever answered this, what is the end game of the process? Wouldn't you have processes in place to reach your ultimate goal, which for the Yankees is winning the World Series? You haven't done that. And anybody sitting there going, they just made it last year. Agreed. What bit the Yankees in the ass last season? The same thing we've been talking about since 2018. A team that looks unprepared, a team that lacks complete fundamentals, a team that seems to lack urgency, and a team that, quite frankly, seems they're not held accountable at all. And funny thing is, speaking of accountability, and one more quote, Aaron Boone, a few years back, said an umpire bullied him. Everybody thought like that wasn't a big deal. I'm sitting there looking around going, this is a grown-ass man. He just said he got bullied by an umpire and nobody has a problem with this? This is the guy that they've all entrusted, Hal at the top, to run the greatest franchise of all time. But accountability I want to talk about because this one is really interesting. A lot of people seem to not understand or want to change what accountability is. Here at this network, I've talked about this longer than anybody, and I don't care who may disagree with that. I gave Aaron Boone 2018, 2019. I immediately said it. There's a problem here. This team is not prepared. They're not held accountable. There seems to be a complete lack of urgency and what the end game here is, which is to win a World Series. I even quoted my own phrase for the club since Boone took over. This team expects to win. They don't play to win. Something I've coined here at NYYU for years, and it just continues to be correct, is that this team believes in their heart. Aaron Boone just said it after they lost multiple games in a row. We're the best team in the league. No matter what anything tells you. I don't want you guys to be fazed by losing all these games. We're the best. No matter what happens, they're the best. This is the same guy that sat there when they lost the World Series. And one of the first things out of his mouth was, I liked my team's togetherness. Hal Steinbrenner continues to allow this to happen. year after year after year after year, no matter how horrible we continue to look, no matter how many times other clubs, other players just poke fun at this club. Now you got people like Ben Verlander, I'm agreeing with, when he comes out and goes, of course it would be the Yankees being the last people to recognize that Jazz shouldn't be at third base. And I can't help but sit there and go, wow, a Yankee beat writer didn't talk about this. It was Ben Verlander. The Yankee beat writers don't talk about these things constantly. They don't hold this team's feet to the fire because, they're probably terrified that Senor Jason Zillo out there is going to say, hey, you're out of here if you ask too many questions. Matter of fact, we have a friend on the Spanish side who asked about Jason Dominguez and wasn't allowed to ask questions again. But anyway, accountability. Interesting. Interesting enough when it comes to accountability is that so many people, and the funny thing is, a lot of adults don't seem to understand what accountability means. A lot of people believe that accountability is you're supposed to do it in front of the media, or that means throwing somebody under the bus. No, it doesn't. And before anybody comes out with the great line that I've heard for years now, well, how would you know if they're not being held accountable behind the scenes? Very simple. Because if people are being held accountable in the right way, things would change. Action plans would be in place to ensure the same stuff doesn't happen. Gleyber Torres is a prime example. It took Aaron Boone to his final year. He publicly did this. He didn't have to. But it took him to his final year to say, you're coming out of this game because I'm sorry. Enough is enough now. Gleyber Torres was a much better player after that. I could see that. And then I could see he came on the field and played a lot better. The problems the Yankees have had could be addressed. Could be talked about. Hey, we don't do that here. Constantly happens year after year. That, my friends, is not deniable. You see it. You see it with your own eyes. A lot of things you see at the people, but every year it's this. Every year the base running. Every year the fielding. Every year playing out of positions. Every year they don't play small ball. Every year they can't drive somebody in. Well, if it's discussed and talked about after all these years, you would think there would be significant actions and results to understand, okay, they probably are having these conversations. Fact of the matter is, I don't need to see it publicly to know one or two things are happening. One, it's not happening. Or two, it goes in one ear and right out the other. That's pretty obvious here. You don't got to be a rocket scientist to understand this. That's how accountability works. I should be able to take somebody at a normal job. I, for one, was a bank manager. Come in my office with me away from everybody. Here's the standard. You're missing it. Here's my action plan to get you there. Sign here. Now, my job is to hold you accountable to doing that because managers manage. That's what they do. Go look up what manage means. So this accountability thing has been taken as a complete negative. You got Ken Rosenthal, Senor Bowtie himself, come out and say, that doesn't happen anymore in baseball. Well, I've seen, just this season publicly, some managers call out their team. Milwaukee, who is that? Is that Don Kelly or is that, I forgot his name. Don Kelly, I think, is actually Pat Murphy. Did it this year when he called this team out right to the media. Don Kelly took O'Neal Cruz out of a game and said, that ain't happening. You ain't hustling. You're out. Went to the media afterwards. He wasn't hustling. He's out. We don't tolerate that here. But again, I'm not saying that's what I'm looking for. I don't need Aaron Boone, or I don't even want Aaron Boone to be this ultra hothead that tells everything to the media right in front of their face. You don't need to be that. But accountability also starts with being honest with yourself and with your fan base, and honestly, with what everybody saw. That's the biggest problem with this club, is that it's as clear as day. There's not accountability. And people like Jack Curry and many others, so again, not just me, I've been saying it for years. You've had others now catch up to go. There just seems to be a lack of urgency with this club. This team always seems like there's another game to play. Even on game 5, it felt like there was another game to play, even though they lost. And the season's over. They're just, And again, after all these years, it wouldn't just be the same thing because Jack Curry, I consider, he's a smart guy, right? He knows his baseball. He's around the club. You think Jack Curry is saying it just seems to be a lack of urgency on this club? You had many other people around the Yankees talk about accountability all of a sudden. They don't seem accountable. You hear post games and you question it and you shake your head and go, oh my God, I just watched this. There was a game a few years back to this day. I'm shocked by it. The Yankees struck out 17 times, folks, and I'm not lying. You know I'm not. Aaron Boone sat there and said, we worked the pitcher. This is the type of stuff that I'm talking about. You're in New York City. You're not managing the Pittsburgh Pirates. You're not managing the Guardians. You're managing the New York Yankees. Your backyard is the Bronx Zoo. At the end of the day, we can sense bullshit a mile away. Nobody's saying you had to throw anybody under the bus, but it's not hard to be honest without doing that. To sit there and say my team struck out 17 times and we worked the pitcher is honestly batshit crazy. There's been many ones this year, and you're sitting there looking around going, what are you talking about? And look, at the end of the day, Brian Cashman, who Hal Steinbrenner allows to really run this club, got his guy in Aaron Boone. Like I said before, lineup handed over. Who's pitching today? Handed over. Never blame anybody. Be a therapist. Deflect everything. Boone gets an A+ on all of that because he does an amazing job of doing it. He can turn the most visible, obvious, horrible plays into a, but I want them to do it every time. And, I don't think it was bad. And nobody questions it. The media can't do it, or they just don't want to because maybe, they'll be thrown out. But they just don't do it at all. They don't do it whatsoever. They don't push it. So with all that being said, I think Yankee fans are actually very reasonable. Yankee fans will go to Yankee Stadium, pay money out of their own pocket, bring the whole family, do whatever they got to do to support this club. Travel. We do that more than anybody. And I believe that. I don't have stats in front of me. I don't even know if that is 100% fact. But I know Yankee fans. I know who we are. I know how much we love this organization. Many of us, like me, we got to live through the dynasty. And is it fair to these Yankees that we hold them to what the once great Yankees were? Maybe it's not anymore because maybe we're the ones fooling ourselves by thinking they're supposed to be the same, by thinking that George, of course, was different. He was a fan. Maybe we're fooling ourselves here. But again, we also can't walk away from what we love as a fan base, what we expect as a fan base, because the expectation has always been set for us because the Yankees still maintain that. Now, Hal Steinbrenner had a comment that I'm more than certain his father would have hated, probably turned in his grave when he heard it. God rest his soul. He said, you just have to get in. And at the time, I made a fit about this because I started calling the Yankees a just get in organization. Now, there was many people out there that said, Pete, but it is kind of a crapshoot, isn't it? And I said, sure. But that's a loser's mentality. I just got to get in and we'll see what happens. What that tells you right there is I don't have to go crazy. I don't have to go nuts. I don't have to go do more than everybody else. Now, a team that has done more recently than everybody else has held up a championship twice since 2020. The Dodgers, who just embarrassed the New York Yankees. Well, I should say the Yankees embarrassed themselves, and the Dodgers were the team that was there, but they played their ball. They played their game. They won. Just get in, and we see what happens. Now, again, whether you believe that's true or not, should the mighty New York Yankees have to come out and say that? Do you want to hear Hal Steinbrenner say we just have to get in? Or do you want Hal Steinbrenner to show you via action, I mean it? I mean it when I say I want us to win a World Series. I mean it when I say it's still World Series or bust. But Hal, the problem we all have with you is, again, at least me, you spend your money, you do your thing. my biggest problem, and I think a lot of Yankee fans' biggest problem with you personally, is we don't believe you care. Truly. We don't believe you feel our anger. Hell, I can barely remember the times you spoke up when this team has struggled. I could barely remember a time there was even a newspaper release, a statement released from Hal Steinbrenner saying, hey, we got to be much better than this. Or whatever it might be. Something. I feel your frustration. I remember the one time he went on one of the airwaves and he said something along the lines of, well, it's the end of June or something like that. I don't know why fans are upset. This is my issue. I don't know why fans are mad. Well, hell, maybe you should be. This is the problem us fans have with Hal Steinbrenner, is you just don't seem to truly care about the end result. And maybe it's not fair that we compare you to your dad, who was an obvious fan of this club, who felt the way we felt when this team struggled, who by all means overreacted. And okay, but that's a fan. Fans overreact. Fans criticize teams they love. A lot of people feel like, oh, you're not a fan if you criticize. Well, actually, you are. Things you care about, you feel you can discuss and criticize and critique because it's coming from a place of love. Me personally, I say it all the time. I call every Yankee game. I bleed pinstripes. I love this team. I created NYYU because it's obvious that the beat writers have let the fans down. They're not out there seeking answers. They're not out there pushing back. They're not out there doing that. We do that here because we care. We see problems. We talk about problems. We see red flags. We say, you got to address these issues. We see the Yankees becoming a just get in organization, and we go, that's not us. Why are we being like everybody else? Why is that thing? The Dodgers just this offseason said we're kind of taking up that, World Series or bust moniker that the Yankees had. And they go as far out as you can to build a team to try to win. You can make the argument the Yankees don't. They got time this season. Let's see what they do. But Hal Steinbrenner, if you ever want to find out why Yankee fans are ever mad with you because you do spend money, you do this, you do that, you do all those things, I understand. But if you really want to find out why, I said this before about Aaron Boone. I said this about Brian Cashman. Grab a mirror, look yourself in it, and simply ask, does Hal Steinbrenner care if the Yankees win or lose? Guys, let me know in the comments below. What do you think? Remember to like, share, and subscribe to NYYU. With that being said, folks, I'm out. Peace out. Have a great rest of your day. All regular programming back tomorrow, folks. Peace out.